Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
It's like it's winter or something. It's very cold. I don't know if you heard on the weather break there. It's a winter advisory, and it is indeed winter. It's cold, and I'm adjusting. You know what I'm doing? I'm embracing radical acceptance. The weather and the situation we find ourselves here in the United States, and how everyone, I think, around the world. I mean, I know. Look, on my way in, I was watching some of the footage. There's a live video on Facebook. Several electeds in D.C., including Jamie Raskin. I know Representative Hernandez. There's a lot of elected Democrats who are outside the Treasury demanding entrance so they can find out what in the hell Elon Musk is up to, this South African psycho who apparently is the president of the United States. And not just the president. He's doing more to get his hands in there and twist things around and get our personal data. He has access to our – this is the kind of thing that you would get a letter from, like let's say a data breach from like Target. Hey, your Social Security number may have been accessed by people outside who you did not give permission to. I do not give permission to Elon Musk to have access to my Social Security number, to my children's Social Security number. You would not allow this is not something that you would be like, hey, one of the speakers said you wouldn't have some guy come over like Elon Musk and say, hey, can you take a look at the bills that I pay and my mortgage history, my 401k, my retirement plan, everything that you put your Social Security, your medical records. I mean, everything, your Social Security number is attached to everything that you do. And now, and I've been a little bit lackadaisical when it comes to my Social Security number. My husband gets he's very cautious. He's very protective of it. When you're at the doctor's office and they ask for it, it's like, why? Why do you need my Social Security number? And I'm like, whatever. My thing is kind of that a lot of stuff is out there, but this guy, one of the things that flashed through my mind, and I don't want to go to extremes of conspiracies and things like that. Their cover is that they want to know what money is being spent on, but then that means you want to know what we're spending our money on. If you are having these teenagers, these young people, put drives into the machines that the Treasury runs on. I don't know if you guys know, but there are several people at high levels in the Treasury who refused to give him access, I believe beginning on Friday, and they resigned rather than give permission. I don't know what the threats were, but this is insane. And I was listening to, I know that our friends Dan Schaefer from the Politini and Tuesdays with Josie will watch conservative television, and our friend Roosevelt says he listens to some of the conservative stations. I tried listening today, and one thing what cracked me up was I got in the car like around noon, and I wasn't listening to the one beneath us, and not the one that's a higher number is above us, but I'm saying on the dial. I didn't go down, I went up. Because I have had friends that worked there, and I don't know how they live with themselves with the crap they put on the air. But this guy was talking about he was talking about the tariffs, and that this seems to be the only drive they have is to own the libs, to do everything possible to choke off resources to whether it's companies or organizations, even 501c, nonprofits that provide services. All they intend to do is make sure that we do not have diversity, equity, and inclusion for women, people of color, veterans, and people with disabilities. This bothers them to no end. I heard this guy talking about the tariffs, and I guess there is some disappointment that Trump didn't go further with his demands, but they still think that this is a win. That it was that he bullied Canada and Mexico, and that they folded. Like that was the deal. Even though No, that is not what happened. They showed how willing they were to go into a trade war with the United States and the economic ramifications that would bring. So anyway, I heard that like around noonish or so, and then some blather about Panama, and then I got in the car later just to check out again. I was like, well, let me see what the stations do. It was the same guy, like they repeated it in the same, like in about a 4-hour span, the exact same thing this guy had said around noon was repeated. Like it just re-aired it. So I'm like, so they don't even have any substance. And then in between, it was some woman who has a gripe about trans athletes, and she's very angry that there aren't any Olympic athletes that are coming out against trans athletes. And this is still their thing because it worked so well during the election. Outrage, hatred, the fear of other is all they still have. And one of the things that struck me, and they were talking about immigration, and that the lefties were wringing our hands over the fact that refugees and asylum seekers are not able to get processed and don't have access to resources, and they're saying it's our fault, even though there was a bill, right, to make sure there was funding, that there was, a plan in place to deal with border crossings, to adjudicate people, to make sure we could do background checks, find out where people were coming from. Were they criminals? Were they truly asylum seekers? But instead, Governor Abbott scooped people up without processing them and sent them to cities to punish places like New York, Boston, Denver, and Chicago. And look, we could go back and forth on what Dems could have done and should have done. What I do know, what was done, and there was a path to do this in a way that was humane, that wasn't so painful financially to the cities where people landed. And there was, I guess the question is for conservatives and perhaps for Democrats is like, why didn't Biden do more? Why didn't he have executive orders? Well, for one, I think that seeing how this is unfolding, and not just the inhumane treatment, right? And also the cost. One of our listeners who messaged me about the cost of just one plane for 100 people was $800,000. Right? $800,000 to fly 100 people to which one was it? Guatemala was where we were having some of the back and forth, one of the countries. And then they turned them back because it was a military plane. So you're telling me, one, that cost is at the utmost of your priorities, and yet here you are spending $800,000 on a flight. And two, for us, it's the humanity of it. And where you're seeing how emboldened racists are when you have someone pretending to be ICE or a police officer pulling somebody over, reaching into, and he was pretending. This guy, I think it was in Georgia, reached into the car, grabbed the keys because the guy was Mexican or Latino, and he didn't have his, like, he was driving, maybe that was driver's license, and it scared the crap out of this guy, took his keys and wouldn't let him leave. Fortunately, that guy's being prosecuted for kidnapping, for pretending to be a police officer. And you have the family in Milwaukee. And these are just the ones that we're learning about. I'm sure there are thousands of situations where people are being illegally detained, and we'll never know about that. People who are being threatened, intimidated. Then we have all these false stories of where ICE is going to raid. And in Milwaukee, a family, a grandmother, a toddler, and another family member were overheard speaking Spanish and were picked up on suspicion of being here illegally for speaking Spanish. And this is the crap that we fight against. Could it have been done better? We could argue about that at some other point. But right now, we are in the middle of making sure that people have their rights protected and that they are safe. And that's what we fight for human rights, for safety, for making sure that people have access to the services, health care, the resources in our communities. And the only thing I see coming out of Washington, D.C. from the Musk White House is how to hurt people, and to do it in a way that he's been given a wide path to just do whatever the hell he wants. Let's take a break here. We'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. The phone number is 773-763-9278 if you want to join the conversation. And we'd love to hear from you. The text screen is also open. I haven't heard from our 815-200 yet. I thought he had a list to give us of all the things he's so super excited about that doesn't include owning the libs. Would love to hear it.
Think Theory Radio. manipulating the masses is more utilizing propaganda, gaining a wide quadrant of the public, where crowd manipulation is more focused, like the divisionary tactics of these political parties. They utilize certain talking points and phrases to target specific groups that they want to maneuver and empower and get them to do their bidding.
Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820. Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
At 5:30, we'll check in with the Recombobulation Area's Dan Schaefer. We're going to do a little back-to-back of Wisconsin updates. We've got Ben Cominos coming on at 6:05, and at 6:45, we're going to talk to Alicia Maria Ruiz, who is a candidate for the mayor of Berwyn. So I've worked with Alicia on other issues. She is the first Latina alderman of Berwyn and was raised in Little Village. So I look forward to talking to her about the issues that affect all of our communities. Jim is calling in. I feel like it's a wellness check with Jim. Not your wellness, my wellness. How you doing, Jim?
Yeah, Patty. I got my straight jacket out of the cleaners,
right.
And I was surprised. It went up like $12. I think that. I don't know if the tariffs affected it or what, but it kind of fits. But I haven't.
Is it something you picked up, from Taylor, or did you buy that secondhand? What's the best way to go about it?
I in 2016, I bought one right away because after that night, I figured I'd need it, to sleep with. But I got it back. I got it out of the cleaners. But anyway, now believe this or not, Netanyahu is in the White House with the stumper, and the stumper says, I got my fingers crossed that those Palestinians don't come back to Gaza. They go somewhere else. Because he's begging, he's begging Jordan, and he's begging Saudi, he's begging the other people to take them in like they're dogs, like they don't exist. And he wants to build it. I'm sure that him and the Muskrat wants to build a hotel there, and then, he says it's prime property, I mean, this is how it's saying it is. And then you got that screwball, little hands and little feet, Marco Rubio, goes down to El Salvador and says, will you take our prisoners, all our dangerous prisoners from the prisons? Oh, yeah, we'll do it. We'll take it all. And not only that, but we'll make crypto. Bring Trump's wife down, and she can do commercials for crypto.
Oh my God!
This is little Marco. This is little Marco, right? Sure. We insulted the death out of him. Patty, I guarantee you, if I was on that stage and he said I had little feet, no hands, I'd show him what little feet, no hands was. He'd be toothless. Yikes. No, he'd be toothless, Patty. But anyway. That's today. That's today. That's just today. And he's banning education. He's banning education. That's being banned. I'm just waiting for those. What is the Muskrat got? 4 teenagers, about 18, 19, that are going into our Social Security. Yep. I can't wait to get, because I get Social Security, and I can't wait for all these Trumpers that. Once Musk, whatever his name is, takes the Social Security checks and the kids, they split it up, and these people are all homeless. I hope that they're delighted with their red hats on, but Patty, here's the deal. They said that I hear a lot of theories that the reason Kamala lost because of the backlash in Palestine. But if that's what they think of it. This is they're going into the second phase of this peace talk. Do you think there's any leverage there with these two psychos? Netanyahu's wanted in about 5 or 6 countries as a murderer, and Trump, another murderer, and they're going to talk this over? I mean, come on, Patty.
No.
Anyway, Anyway, it's just anyway. At least I got the straight jacket out of the cleaners. That was a break. Anyway, have a good show. Have a good show, Betty.
Thank you so much, Jim. Good to hear from you. Yeah, I was listening on the way in. We, of course, on the AP, the news report was played some audio of what did he call him? Stumper. I don't know what names I want to use anymore. I vacillate between all the different descriptions. But the current guy in the White House, well, not, I don't, like, who is it? Is it Elon Musk or is it Trump? I don't know which one, but the one with the orange hair and the very strange eyebrows. Now, what is going, are they bleaching his eyebrows now too? Have you noticed? Like, they're like weirder, whiter, and bushier, like just strange. But he was talking about meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that no one wants to go back to Gaza. Why would you live there? And I don't know. I'm trying to put my finger on what that sounded like. Like, don't come back. We're going to make it worse for you, kind of a thing. And like, he's just rambling. I mean, again, I'm trying to lean into, and I love when Richard says lean into. I'm trying to lean into radical acceptance. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I have radically accepted that this is indeed winter, even though it was like 50 some degrees just a few days ago. And I'm also trying to radically accept. The night of the election, I was trying to radically accept, even though I didn't have the language for it. But radically accepting means that you accept that this is a situation that you're in. It's kind of those 5 stages of grief. And I know some folks go back and forth between those stages today, even because every 5 minutes there's something crazy coming out of Washington, D.C. And to Jim's point, the other thing about the El Salvadoran government isn't just that they said they would take illegal, undocumented immigrants or criminals, and they said we'll take anybody of any nationality, even Americans. Like, they're offering to take American prisoners. What is happening? What is happening? It's absolute madness. But the night of the election, I remember just trying to go, okay, this is it. Now, the only thing I can do now is get ready. And it was so hard because to get ready, you have to know what you're getting ready for, and it's impossible to imagine. And even today, knowing what the last 15 days have been like, it is, in fact, one of the reasons I knew I could not be behind this microphone on Inauguration Day and needed to take some time, because I plan to be here for as long as folks will let me yap away, whether it's here or wherever I spend the next 20, 30. I will keep talking and calling this crap out, demanding justice and protection of rights, fighting for not just my family, but for working families across the country. I do think that one of the goals in all of this, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the attack on people who want to be who they are, love who they love, that is all smoke and mirrors. That is, they're using the anger and rage of white Christian nationalists or people who don't like anyone that isn't like them or doesn't behave the way they want them to, whether it's women being successful and powerful and strong and doing the jobs that for years we were not allowed to do, or even, I mean, there are people in this White House who don't even think that women should vote. Folks, we weren't even, up until the 1970s, women could not even have their own credit cards or bank accounts. In Wisconsin, if you wanted to get birth control, you had to have permission from you had to be married and have permission from your husband. In the 60s, we are not that far removed. The people who are doing this were either alive then or were raised by people who want to drag us back there. And I refuse. That was all the whole we're not going back. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are being dragged back, and our job, and I know that I cut somebody off yesterday, and I can't remember if it was Dave that at first they came. That idea, and the thing is, that the people listening, for the most part, most of us know that. We know that they're coming that they've already come for them, and we need to keep calling attention to it. Whether it is our neighbors who are afraid that ICE will knock on their doors, and the people who've already been taken away. Now there's a flight down to Guantanamo Bay. We don't have any. I don't trust this administration or the people that are carrying these orders out, that they are doing it in a way that is humane, that is actually legal, and I don't know that we'll ever find out the extent to which innocent people have been rounded up. Let me get to Derek in South Elgin. Hey, Derek, how are you doing today?
Hi, Patty.
Hey.
I'm aggravated.
Yeah.
God. Every day is an aggravation.
I know.
This from Indivisible an hour ago. 22 Democrats, including our Senator Dick Durbin, voted to confirm Doug Collins for Secretary of Veterans Affairs. And, it just pisses me off because hundreds of us have been calling our senators, slow this crap down. Mm-hmm. And all they're doing is thumbs up. Now, here's one from Bernie. Russell Vogt, he's up for a vote probably tomorrow. Need everybody to call their senators, and hopefully they'll go a little spine and vote no. This is getting ridiculous. Yep. I mean, these confirmations are going through way too smooth as President Musk and his vice president sidekick Trump are destroying our country.
I agree.
You tell him, Piz. I am pissed.
Absolutely, I'm pissed. I'm trying to find. Here's a full list of Democrats who voted to confirm Doug Collins as the VA secretary. 24 Democrats voted in favor, as you mentioned, and it was. I guess they want to say that do they want to appear as though they're being bipartisan? Do they want to act as though they're? Look, I have had issues, concerns. Those are the mild words I'm using for our state, for our Senator Dick Durbin. I mean, like, I was so frustrated when he demanded that Al Franken resign. I think it would have been nice to have a champion like Al calling again attention to the injustices and the lies that are coming out of this White House. But I haven't been following this appointment closely enough. But do you want to see them just, as you mentioned, drag their heels on everything? Don't make it easy. Don't roll over. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is. I guess they confirmed RFK Jr. today. I knew he came out of committee, but I don't know if they took the full vote.
Yeah.
But there's a probability that they confirmed him, too. I mean, this guy's a crackpot.
Oh gosh, yeah, no doubt about it. And Tulsi's nomination has also made it out of committee, so she'll be up soon too. Amy Klobuchar voted for this guy. Do you think it's because they've worked with him? He's also a rep, and they feel like this is the thing that always kind of is strange to me, that there's these conversations about how, well, we fight it out on the floor of the the House or in the Senate, but we still go out for drinks and dinner afterwards, and we get along really well, right?
I'm sick of that.
Right?
I've heard that. I am so sick of that crap. In the meantime, the American people are drowning.
Right.
And I got one other comment to make before I let you go. What is the difference between the whole explosion of media coverage and the outrage with Hillary's laptop? She used it as for her work purpose. Right. Now, I want to make a comparison.
Yeah, that's a good point.
With Hillary's laptop was no different than me as a public school educator that was assigned my public school district assigned me a laptop. That was no different. Me taking that laptop after school hours home with me so I could do my schoolwork and my IEP.
Right.
There's no difference. But now all of a sudden, President Musk and his 25-year-old little sidekicks are going into the Treasury Department, downloading crap on his private server.
Yeah.
What is that?
And I don't know who gets access to the Treasury, because as of today, apparently they have named, the White House has named Elon Musk a federal government special employee kind of a thing. So, but why can't, I don't understand why none of the members of the House or the Senate then also have access. I mean, like, what kind of badge do you need? Because apparently he hasn't even had, I don't believe, if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't had a security clearance background check. He's not a citizen of the United States. Why are we letting foreign nationals into our Treasury?
As a matter of fact, Patty, I wrote a letter, Kwame Raoul Day, and I specifically said that. It's a short letter. I'll read it real quick.
Sure.
I'm writing to you today to request an investigation into the theft of my personal data from the U.S. Treasury Department at the hands of Elon Musk. Mr. Musk gained full security clearance by Treasury Secretary Bessent without an FBI background check, a proper vetting process through the Senate, and has not had to sit through any questioning process by the Senate, or has a vote been taken. Along with Mr. Musk, a number of underlings have also gained access to the Treasury Department with any oversight or approval. It is my understanding through a number of news sources that this band of thieves, have been harvesting my personal data, including my Social Security number, and rewriting security codes. I ask you, AG Raul, to move forward in this investigation, take all necessary steps, get to the bottom of this crime, and charge Mr. Musk with theft and or espionage. The safety of all Illinoisans and the American people are at stake. This is ridiculous. Yep. It is just absolutely nuts.
Yeah. And the Republicans want us to lay back and enjoy ourselves. Like literally,
well, that's why I want the Democrats.
Yeah, if you don't fight so hard, you'll enjoy yourself. Is the way they're acting, Derek. You know what were we wearing? We deserved this, Derek. That's how they're treating us.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
All right, Patty, I'll let you go. I'm going to make a drink.
What are you having? What's the cocktail tonight?
Kessler's whiskey and Diet Pepsi.
Diet Pepsi? I'm a Diet Coke gal. Do you put a lime or a lemon in there? What do you got? Nothing?
Just a lot of ice.
A lot of ice. Hey, sounds good to me. I'll have one after the show. Take care, my friend.
All right.
Pace yourself, okay?
Have a good night.
Have some water in between. All right, thanks.
Oh, yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's take a break here. We'll come back. My friends who are on the line, I'm going to check in with Dan Schaefer, and I will get to your call, so I appreciate your patience, and I want to make sure I give you some time to chime in as well. More in a moment with Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
We're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
So much for joining us because I've been traveling for the last couple of weeks. I haven't had a chance to check in with our good friend Dan Schaefer, the creator, editor, writer for the Recombobulation area, as well as the political editor for the Civic Media Newsroom. We have Dan Schaefer on the line. So Dan, we haven't talked since before these crazy 15 days. How are you feeling?
I must say, it's been a discombobulating 15 days, Patty. I can think of no other word to really describe what's going on right now than discombobulating. Of course, I'm leaning into the discombobulation, recombobulation, as I often do, but really, I mean, it's really a lot to wrap your head around. It's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's nonstop, right? I mean, this was the thing that we loved in the most of the administration until the campaigns started, was just like our elected just doing their freaking fracking job, right? Our president just doing the work, and we didn't have to worry about what was going to be tweeted, who was going to get hurt, whose rights were going to be stripped, who was going to be attacked, who were we mad at. Like, it's a lot. That's all I'm saying. I am discombobulated as well.
Yeah, it's been quite the last 15 days. Off to the Trump administration, off to quite the start.
Yes, I want to send. I'll send you a link let me see if I can do it. But a friend of mine a few years ago, his name is, I don't know if you found this book, but his name is Brandon Weatherby, and he wrote a book about how Trump turned presidential politics into pro wrestling. And I want to talk to you about that because you've written a piece about this, similar that it has become this, and not just the sort of the heel, the face, all these different images and personalities, but then that's the crowd. Like this is what a lot of Americans want, is this nonsense, this sort of showmanship, right?
Yeah, so I wrote this piece this week at the Recombobulation area about kind of the road that we got here and what it tells us about what we need to do and what Democrats and left of center media needs to figure out in the weeks and months and years to come. And I think what we need to understand is the realignment and the new reality that brought us here in this election. And so I think, in my estimation, part of what Donald Trump was able to do successfully in his campaign was turn out new voters. In the state of Wisconsin, for example, he increased his vote share from 2020 to 2024 in all 72 counties. So, there are a couple counties that drifted, in Kamala Harris's direction. But in most parts of the state, he increased his vote share significantly. And I think the way he was able to do that was to, really speak to a lot of what, political science dorks like myself will refer to as low propensity voters. So people who might not necessarily vote in every election, might not be voting in the midterms or voting in their local races for school board or city council or whatever it might be. But people who, were not necessarily part of the political process. And historically, I think people on the left especially thought that, if only we offered this especially progressive platform, that we would be able to, bring these kind of non-voters out of the woodwork to vote, and that would deliver Democratic victories. But I think what Donald Trump showed us in this last election is that some of those voters, at least in 2024, are not, Bernie Sanders progressives, but what I'm calling the Donald Trump pro-wrestling Republicans. And I think there are kind of these two wings of the Republican Party. You have the kind of more traditional country club Republicans, and then you have the pro-wrestling Republicans. And having covered the RNC in Milwaukee, we crossed paths there a couple times. Yep. You're in the building for that, and you have a Kid Rock concert, and you have Hulk Hogan ripping his shirt, and you have Dana White from the UFC, the person who introduced Donald Trump for his convention speech. And I think where, Trump and Republicans have found success is by prioritizing the pro-wrestling Republicans over the country club Republicans, and then effectively governing like those same old traditional country club Republicans who are just going to, give tax cuts for the rich and stack the judiciary with all these Federalist Society freaks and like all of the rest of the stuff that we know from every Republican administration. But like on optics, on that, they were able to find success with this. And I think that this is something that Democrats can learn from, because if I look at what has happened with Trump and MAGA and everything else, there's a lot that I find really revolting about it, but most of it is the policies, right, and what they're trying to do. It's not necessarily, the vulgarity or the spectacle or the just weirdness of it. Like, some of that's actually kind of funny to me, but I think Democrats can learn from this and embrace some sort of like pro-wrestling style, not necessarily messaging, but just like you have to do things to get people's attention in this day and age. And I think what, Trump and these pro-wrestling Republicans have been very good at is getting people's attention. And I think that is something that Democrats can and should be learning from in these weeks to come. You're not going to get people's attention all the time with Chuck Schumer peering over his glasses and reading another statement. You have to do things differently. And I think that's what Democrats and those on the left need to understand with this realignment that's taken place, is that you have to approach these things differently to get people's attention. The traditional media landscape is crumbling. The old world is kind of not, it's just not there in the same way that it was. So you have to adapt, you have to readjust. And that's what I wrote about in my piece this week at the Recombobulation area.
Yeah. So I mean, like, do you? So we had to break some chairs. We got to make a spectacle of things, right? But we got to grab some steel chairs.
That's right. We got to get into the fight here.
Well, and back to your point, I mean, I can see, there's so many people who are still salty about Bernie Sanders losing, right? And so that's done and dusted. That was because I guess he got a lot of energy and enthusiasm from a lot of young people who wanted to go farther to the left. But I would have voted for him. I wasn't enthusiastic about him, and that's just a different story altogether. So not for nothing, but like a Jasmine Crockett is rocking. But I don't see, I don't know. I don't know who. Do you identify anybody who is bouncing off the ropes and clotheslining somebody on the Democratic side that can create that kind of energy?
Yeah, I think part of it is just like the generational divide that the Democratic Party has, and some of the, this has clearly been a party that has struggled to pass the torch. Like, I'm not making any ridiculous claims here, but I think some of the younger members of the party are better at getting people's attention. Like, I think AOC is, there's things that she does that I agree with. There's things that I might not necessarily agree with 100% all the time. But she's able to get people's attention.
Right.
And I think, Chris Hayes of MSNBC wrote a book about this, and I find it really fascinating, is I think the attention economy is something that people really need to focus on, because you're not going to be able to get people's attention in the conventional ways like you maybe once did. And so I think it's going to take, something outside the norm, reaching people at different channels, whatever it might be, social media, doing, different events in person, like whatever it might be. You have to really kind of do something extra to really break through. And I think that's what Trump and Republicans have been effective at, is really getting and keeping people's attention. And I think that's something that Democrats, need to recognize, that a sit down 60 minutes interview or whatever in the traditional structures might be, that's not going to get people's attention the same way as in 2025 anymore. It's just not the same.
Well, one of the things that got attention in Wisconsin and other swing states on the Republican side was these anti-trans messages, right? And that an answer that Kamala Harris gave back in 2019 was, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on those ads across the country. Now, I like you, am disappointed that Ben Wickler was not chosen to be the head of the DNC. I think that I agree. I think look, I don't know. Was it Ben Martin, the guy from Minnesota, who has been chosen? Is his name Ben?
Ken Martin. He's Ken. Just Ken. He's
just Ken. But I mean, look, there's weird choices all over the place with this. I'm not sure. I mean, Minnesota also lost ground where Wisconsin gained ground, even though they didn't flip it. Right? They gained a lot more ground. I don't know. I guess. What are your thoughts on skipping? Choosing somebody else other than Ben Wickler?
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I've been able to see what, I've talked to Ben a number of times over the past few years covering politics in and around Wisconsin. And he is just one of those people that, I think there's so many people in the big tent of the Democratic Party that, you can, just like the Bernie versus Hillary stuff from years back, or just whatever different factions that there will be within the party. Wickler was really good in Wisconsin at bringing a lot of those factions together under the big tent. And I think that is one of the things that made him really successful, where he could, speak to kind of far left or further left, progressive, kind of organizing groups and things like that, and also just be, in touch with the more moderate crowds as well. And so he was able to just kind of bring people from all walks to under that big tent of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. And, he was a really effective communicator as the Democratic Party chair as well. So I think, that's something that I think, I don't really know if I have a whole lot of confidence in the selection that they made to be that kind of upfront communicator on these types of things. When people, I think, across the country are really looking for that public-facing leadership from the Democratic Party, and they're just not getting it right now, I don't feel like. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't at all. Although, I mean, I guess we've got... So is there any indication that Ben will continue, past the spring elections? Does he plan on staying? I would imagine he's staying in that seat with the head of the Wisconsin Democratic Party.
Yeah, so I guess the silver lining for us here in Wisconsin is that Wickler will be back in Wisconsin for the spring election, and the spring election includes yet another everything on the line Wisconsin Supreme Court race, as if we're not all so exhausted by politics. I started seeing some of the ads, for these candidates while I was watching the Bucs game the other night, and I was just like, oh my gosh, we're right back at it again, aren't we? We're just right back into the horrible negative ads and calling people names and making all these sorts of accusations. And it's just it's not what you want, Patty. It's not what you want. But it's good that Ben will be back in Wisconsin to help organize for this. The Democratic Party of Wisconsin has endorsed Susan Crawford in this race. There is not a primary this year, so there is just the two candidates, the liberal justice Susan Crawford and the right-wing candidate, former Attorney General Brad Schimmel. So, that's going to be a really, really big deal in the state of Wisconsin on April 1st. And then we also have a state superintendent race that's happening then as well. So actually, early voting for that just started today for the primary for state superintendent across the state of Wisconsin. So, we're right back in election season here.
Oh, I know.
My goodness.
Hey, look, just I do love me some brat stop, so I'll be heading back. I already was in Elkhorn on the Saturday before the inauguration up there. I gave a speech at the Elkhorn, the Walworth County Dems. They are having a training session this weekend, folks. I recommend that you visit their website and find out about getting involved, because we will be making trips again. Fibs for Wisconsin, Dan. It's Fibs for Wisconsin.
It's for Wisconsin. We love it. We love it.
One last question. Well, maybe I have a couple of questions, but I do want to ask. I work for the state of Illinois, and I had to quickly turn around a memo during the federal blockade of funding for programs that a lot of people rely on, and I just caught this that the Head Start was just one of many organizations that was in a pinch. Do you know if they were able to get their paychecks out, or do we know yet if that, because they were like they were shut. It was basically their computer programs were shut down. They were locked out of all different kinds of files. Were they able to get back on their feet to take care of everyone?
Not everyone. So I've seen this characterized as, I think one of the PBS NewsHour reporters was talking about this as kind of like rolling blackouts with a number of these organizations, I think was the way to put it. And I think that's what has happened in a number of these. So I think they said, like half Wisconsin Public Radio reported this today, that like half of the Head Start facilities across the state were not able to access their funding. And one in particular that they focused on in Waukesha County actually had to close. They had to close because they were not able to get any funding. And so that is leaving more than 250 families who relied on this program, relied on Head Start, were kind of left scrambling to try and figure out what they're going to be doing. So, I think there's a lot of things that are that the new administration is just kind of stress testing everything in the system to see what's going to bend and what's going to break and what's going to happen. But this freeze that they did last week, we're still feeling the fallout of it here in Wisconsin with some of these programs. So it's definitely very concerning.
Well, yeah, that's my impression of all of it. And they're gonna find ways around whatever whether it's the court order or they'll find a way to make people suffer, and we know that they're willing to do that. So my last question is: did you find your sunglasses, and were they prescription? Because I hate when that happens.
I did not. You're saying that I was posting about this on Blue Sky, jokingly, that I couldn't find my sunglasses. I still haven't found my sunglasses. We had a little issues with our vehicles in our household as of late, and I think we had gotten a car accident. The car got totaled, and I think the sunglasses were in that car.
Oh no! So, that sucks.
Minor concern, all things considered.
I remember every single pair of my favorite sunglasses that I've lost. There was a pair I lost in the state capitol in Springfield. And I still ask, even like 6 years later, I still ask the lost and found. Hey, anybody trying a pair of Ray-Ban prescription sunglasses? Anybody? No? Okay. So
yeah, and mine were prescription too. I lose things like this all the time, but I had hung on to these prescription sunglasses for a good, I don't know, close to 10 years now, I think. But yeah,
I had a pair of prescription sunglasses that I love so much that I broke one of the arms off, right? And I looked, and my son, who had outgrown his pair, I was able to actually attach them to my glasses and get a few extra years out of them. So
there you go.
I Frankenstein my glasses because I love the lenses so much. At any rate, it's Dan Schaefer. Follow him on Blue Sky. Subscribe to his newsletter, The Recombobulation Area. Be a paid subscriber so you can support the work that he and the other journalists do. And then you can also find out when he's on radio shows in Wisconsin. Of course, he shares his appearances on our show, and we appreciate all the work that you do, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Patty. Be well.
You too. I'll talk to you next week if you've got time. See ya.
Absolutely.
All right, great. Let's take a break here. When we come back. So my callers, who were so patient, they lost their patience, Lady B. It was Jackie and Roosevelt that gave up. I said I was all right. I got the phone lines open, folks. 773-763-9278. That's 773-763-9278. You can call or text, and we'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Patti Vasquez. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to talk to Ben Cominos, the host of WHBY's Outside the Box out of Appleton, Wisconsin. Joining us now on the line is one of our frequent listeners, callers, friends of the show, Roosevelt. What's on your mind, my friend? You have me listening to conservative radio, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
I was listening to what?
You have me listening to conservative radio. You and Dan Schaefer both convinced me. I did. Such nonsense. Okay.
All right. So here's the thing. I've said this before on this station. And I want to be the first one again to call that so-called Latino Marco Rubio scumbag.
Okay.
All right.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so here's the deal. You know what he's going to do, right? This is the way I see it. What is that guy's name? Beatty, the guy that is underling.
Oh, I don't know.
The guy that you know about him, right?
No. Who's this? Marco Rubio's underling?
Wait a minute.
Wait, Marco Rubio's underling? Hold on, I'm looking it up. Underling.
His last name is Beatty. He's I believe, from what I read, he's the next speechwriter for Trump. And you got to look up Jasmine, what's her name? Jasmine Crockett from Texas. Crockett. Okay. Because she's calling out saying that he should resign. He should never be put in because of the comments that he made. Basically what he said, well, I want to look it up because I don't want to misquote myself.
Okay, so it's Darren Beatty, right? He was a writer for the website Revolver. He's the acting Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy is who you're talking about.
That is correct. Okay. And by the way, you could read it on, if other people want to look this up, on Democracy Now! We all know about Democracy Now! So the basic comment was, competent white men must be in charge.
If you want things to work. Yep.
Supremacist Darren Beatty gets State Department role. I don't believe that he's going to resign because that's one of the qualifications for Trump to have a job. Yep. You got to be a liar. Right. You got to be a liar. You got to be either a supremacist or you got to go for the white man. Okay, and then the main one is loyalty, unconditional loyalty. Okay, so what Rubio is trying to do is just stay in, and I don't think it's going to last. I don't know what your opinion is, and I think this is one of the reasons why this guy has been given this position. So when he gets rid of Rubio, there he is. He goes to the top.
Ugh. Well, here's the thing. So this guy, Darren Beatty, that Roosevelt's talking about, in addition to saying competent white men must be in charge, he says that our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities while demoralizing competent white men. I'm sorry. Yeah, we are so freaking coddled in this country. Okay, don't make me yell, Roosevelt. Why are you bringing this to my attention?
Yep. So, yeah, I neglected to add that to it. Now, at the same token...
But this whole nation has been built on coddling white men and making sure that they feel safe and have access to everything that they want. What are we even talking about here? We're having these conversations every day about, like, how can we make sure that men feel like, what do we do to empower men? Like, we talk about empowering women because there's this great video, if you remember this from the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, and this woman was talking about, the riots and what was happening, and the idea that women and people of color should somehow, the whole bootstrap ideology, or that you should, we don't have to give any sort of preference or recruitment or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she said, look, if you're playing a game of Monopoly, right, which is predicated on the idea of getting as much property and money as you can, right? Imagine that they've made you sit by for 500 rounds of Monopoly, and then you're allowed to enter the game, and you're supposed to catch up after 500 rounds of Monopoly. And that's what it's like to be a woman and a person of color in this country, that for 500 years we did not have access to the resources, the opportunities, the rights and freedoms that white men have had from the beginning. Okay. What did you want to say, Roosevelt?
Oh, yeah. Now that I mention it, you made me think of also another video in front of Congress where Jasmine Crockett was incensed in anger because they were claiming that the white men were the ones that had suffered through history. Did you see that?
Oh,
video?
yeah, that they deserve reparations from slaves. That slaves, that slaves owe white people anything more than their humanity, the lives that were lost, the women that were raped, the children that were ripped away from their families. These people are so full of garbage. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous. But you know what? I believe that in this instance, with the one I mentioned previously, it's a dog whistle. To all the and the way I saw it, it's a dog whistle. We're the ones that have been suffering. We're the ones that have been basically, all they had to do is say basically, but they didn't say it that way, that they've been the prejudice against white men, not women, but it's more than that, of course. It's more the suffering. I believe she mentioned something about suffering. No, that was something else she said.
Trump doesn't even like American women enough to marry one. I've got to get to a break here, Roosevelt. We've got. I know. That was pretty. I know it didn't seem like it was long, but that was 5 minutes. Roosevelt, just so you know. All right, talk to you later.
No, I agree.
Talk to you later. Ben only lets his listeners call in for 2 minutes. He has a timer. I might go to that, Roosevelt. I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye. Let's take a break here. We'll continue our conversation. We come back. CPT 820 Heartland Signal. We'll be joined by Ben Cominos after this.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the drive home. We want to say hello to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Of course, we're broadcasting here in Chicago on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, and you can go to heartlandsignal.com if you are having trouble with your signal in on your radio, or if you want to catch any of our other shows that you might have missed. Before I get to our friend, one of our friends from Wisconsin, Ben Cominos, is on the line. I want to let people know I just got a phone call from the volunteers from the Wisconsin Dems. Bonnie just called and want to let folks know that they have phone banking coming up. It's virtual phone banking. We, of course, are trying to get the vote out, get people involved and activated for the April 1st election. As we mentioned with Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation area, the Supreme Court race is one of the most important races in the near future, and everything hangs in the balance. So go to wizdems.org. That's wizdems.org, and you can sign up for a virtual phone banking event. And so we thank our friends, of course, from the Walworth County Dems and all the Dems that we work with FIBS for Wisconsin. Ben Cominos, who is a FIB by address, residency, Pittsburgh native by origin, by birth. Hey, Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm all right, Patty. How about yourself?
I can't. I've been trying to think of other ways to describe what it's like the last 15 days. It's like, I only open one eye in the morning and go, is this still happening? And I don't want to look at my phone. Let me start this way. How do you get your news? I know that you prep your show very early in the morning. Like, what are your go-to sources to find out what in the frickin' frack is happening today?
So the way I try to keep it fresh is I'm not going to say I never go to the same place twice. I reuse a ton of sources, but I try not to go to the same place 2 days in a row for consistency of voice, just to change things up. But I'll go just about anywhere. I mean, I'll go, even though I'll disparage them, I check out the national sources, your New York Times, your Wall Street Journals, your things like that.
Sure.
I'm big on The Guardian, big on Reuters.
Yes, I like that.
Prefer to see some of the non-American approaches to the way we do politics here. Not always foolproof, but I can get with it. And then, the progressive scene as well there. I'm a big Common Dreams person, and the Wisconsin Examiner, which is a Milwaukee or a Madison-based operation, does some good reporting out of there. And there's a couple of local ones that really do the best that they can with the resources we have. So, that's always good to show them some love as well. But never really the same place twice.
That's
great.
Yeah,
thanks.
Yeah, no, it's a good idea. I was just telling the audience that I actually also was listening to conservative radio here in Chicago to see what the take on the news of the day was. It was, and I was like, are we seriously still talking about trans athletes? They're very upset that there's no Olympic athletes that are coming, being a strong voice against trans women, and they're very, they love. It's so bizarre to me because I just don't think of J.K. Rowling anymore, and they're so excited that she's on their team, and then they were talking about immigrants and like how this was all like the mess is all Democrats' faults and things like that. It was, so I tried that for a few minutes today. Do you ever tune into any of your? I don't know if your station carries a wide range of politics, but do you listen to any of the hardcore right talk shows?
So I'm there's no other politics on HBY. They're traditional local, but we have some options out here. And from not to get petty, but from a rating standpoint, after I showed up, there's clearly a market for not that. So just to say that
nice.
if you're doing a good job, if you're putting time in, you can break that conversation. But here's the thing, Patty. I have conservatives that hop on my show that say, Ben, I'll be honest, I rarely agree with what you're saying, but when I turn on the other guys, and this is back when Democrats were still in power, more so than now, but they say it's always such fluff. It's about the FBI targeting Trump and all this stuff that I truly don't care about. I just want X, Y, and Z. And even though you're not necessarily giving me the angle I want, you're at least talking about the issues affecting me. So to answer your question, I don't listen to them very much that often, but I'm willing to bet had I turned on, I call it the Joe Schmo Show up in Green Bay. Had I turned it on, I can almost guarantee you it would have been about the victory that Donald Trump achieved by threatening tariffs and getting what Mexico and Canada already promised us 6 freaking weeks ago. And they'd be sitting there telling anyone that wants to hear it how successful that measure was. That's probably what was on every single right-wing station today.
That was the thing. Was that Canada and Mexico caved? And to your point, exactly right. Although one of the conservatives did say that they thought that he could have gone farther and gotten more. Of course. But he
didn't win. He didn't win enough with that. Is what he did. He won a whole bunch. It's that he could have won even more than he already did. Is the sketchy take, I'm sure.
Yeah, it has been a wild ride so far. We just had a Dan Schaefer in the last segment from the recombobulation area, and he covers a lot of stories out of Wisconsin. And I work for the state of Illinois, so we were talking about that federal blockade that they tried doing the stunt that they tried doing last Monday, that they were going to shut down any funding to grants that because they wanted to make sure that no program, no Head Start program, no resources for people who receive support for after school programs or for kids with disabilities or Meals on Wheels, make sure that there's no diversity, equity, and inclusion baked in any. What is happening, Ben?
Yeah. And see, so what I do is I hammer it from the other side of the spectrum. I embarrass anyone listening to me that might actually think that kind of stuff. I had a guest on today. He talked for 40 minutes. This is a PhD-level economist talking about private equity and hedge funds' involvement in the firefighting industry and how they have jacked up the prices, leaving the L.A. Fire Department and so many other fire departments all over the nation understaffed and under-equipped because of these artificially inflated prices. And with not an ounce of sarcasm in my voice, I go, so you're telling me it's not the lesbians? And thankfully he got the joke. Thankfully he understood the joke. But that's the way that I'm hammering it, because it is borderline embarrassing how every single thing goes to DEI. And even the MAGA conservatives that we give each other the benefit of the doubt, I'm like, this guy's removing any benefit of the doubt. He's basically saying airplanes are crashing because black people are in power. Eventually, you leave me with nowhere to go. And they can sit there and be like, well, Democrats always go to racism. It's like, well, you're saying some pretty racist crap right now. What do you want me to say about it? So I just go for you guys know me. You know I don't blow this out of proportion. You're being, a word I can't say on the air right now. You guys need to grow out of that.
Yeah. Now, are there any, Trump voters who are starting to go, because people want the Schadenfreude. They want some of the fart around and find out elements to it. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what can I do to help? My day job is to figure out what this is going to look like for the state of Illinois if we are choked off from resources for programs like Medicaid. Like, there are 11 states in the country where federal funding drops below a certain level. We have to start kicking people off, health plans.
Right.
So, is there anybody, it's only 15 days in, but are you getting any calls from folks who are like, well, this is not what I expected? Or is this, are they excited and this is exactly what they wanted? Are you getting any either one of those or somewhere in the middle?
So I think it's more so what's the word I'm looking for here? Tentative apprehension. I think they can tell, because while I don't expect any individual to be able to change an economy overnight, I would argue the last 15 days have not done a single thing addressing anything in the cost of living crisis. And it's kind of hard to spin that to mean anything else. And they can say, well, Ben, it's only been 2 weeks. He has 4 years to get this done. I'm like, I hear you. But given how much this was kind of brought up during the election, you'd assume the first 15 days would go to that. And you can tell they're like, well, you just don't understand yet. Just give it time. There's a lot of pieces to this. And I think it's just going to inevitably take every single week being like, hey, you guys noticed how stuff's actually more expensive than it was a couple weeks ago? That has to catch up eventually. I do believe there's less goodwill. I've said it to you a bunch of times. I do believe there is less goodwill this time around just because so many people are pinched. There's, like you said, there's the Schadenfreude. Liz Cheney could get thrown in jail and a bunch of J6ers will start clapping. But, it doesn't put food on the table. Just
right.
Like we used to say when they talk about the Donald Trump trials. I'd be like, great, he's obviously a criminal. Do something about health care, please.
Yeah.
And it's the same principle. Yeah.
Well, and I think, for me, the January 6 hearings were about, the intention did not work out. The intention was to make sure that he did not become a president of the United States again. Like that, they wanted to show the American people, and the American people, the ones that voted for him didn't, they actually made him more powerful by, that he was targeted, that it was unjust, that he won all these different things. Like they basically, some folks are talking about, Dan Schaefer was talking about how this is basically pro wrestling, right? And they love cheering for the guy who's the heel. They're excited about this,
I've made that comparison myself, and it does feel it feels that way. There's the baby face and the heel, and the heel is a necessary part of the story, and that absolutely is part of the conversation as well. I had something else I was going to throw on there, but I'm blanking on it. I had another point that I wanted to make on top of that. I wish I could remember it right now, but nevertheless, yeah, no, tell me about it. But I think there's some truth to that for sure, and I think there's some people that enjoy. Can you remind me what the question was you were asking? I had a great point, but you knocked me off track with the wrestling thing there.
Yeah, no. But just whether or not people are coming, and it's only 15 days in, and I think, and I know you covered it as far as they're kind of having a little bit of apprehension about it. He's giving them the DEI stuff, the diversity, equity, and inclusion. The attack on people who want to be themselves, trans issues, all of those elements, it was the bread and butter of the campaign. They riled people up. CRT didn't work. They haven't explained what critical race theory was. And then we're on our heels explaining that diversity, equity, inclusion means women, people of color, veterans, people with disabilities. When we're explaining, it doesn't make any difference. But we're not great at the other side of the showmanship of wrestling. Republicans have that in the bag, and we're sort of all over the place with our messaging, and I think we're showing it even now with Democrats voting, towing the line, and going, fine, this VA guy's fine. I want them to get in there and break some chairs over heads. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I can get behind that, but more importantly, to your point, it can't be. I prefer it not be showmanship. That's what I want. There it is. We got there. Yep. That's what it was. Is that picture what's happening right now with Trump in office and how it seems like every single day. I missed my show yesterday. I had a frog in my throat. I had to take 24 hours off. Felt like I missed a week because of how many things are happening, right? Like it never stops. Picture that, except all good stuff. Picture that, except for student loans were getting wiped out, and they were fixing health care, and they created a new child care program out of nothing, and they did all these great things. And you'd be like, is that even legal? Who cares? We'll find out when it gets to the court.
I see what you're saying.
Like the same idea, but good stuff. And like, as frustrated as I am by this, like you're like, by what he's doing, to me, it shows you, okay, we now know what's on the table. No more the parliamentarian said we're not allowed to raise minimum wage. Like, we know what's there. Lay out a Project 2028. Like, you want to do showmanship? Show me this over-the-top, bombastic plan that is going to bring everybody making less than $400 million a year up for the party.
Okay.
And I promise you that will be a winning message.
Okay. Well, let's you and I should write our Project 2028 and then get, I
love it.
Let's do it. You mean like things like this? Trump says he's going to take over the Gaza Strip and level it. Gaza is a demolition site that is very dangerous and precarious, and he's willing to send in U.S. troops. That's just,
right. Okay. Exactly. But Democrats ceded the anti-war conversation because what would the option? Like, you'll never convince me, and I can't prove otherwise. You'll never convince me, other than the troops going over there. The exact same outcome was coming down the pipeline. Like, had Harris won, in all honesty, Patty, minus all the overtly terrifying things that happened, any of the problems, would they be getting fixed or would it be status quo? It would absolutely be status quo, right? So we got to eliminate that. Come in with an agenda and make a play, not excuses. That needs to be the game plan for 2026. More importantly, for 28.
Here you go. We have a text for you, Ben. What a surprise! This is from the 815. This is a 545. I don't know if this is related to the 200, but 815 says, "What a surprise! The idiot who's talking to your host doesn't care or wants to hear about the FBI lying and doing their best to frame a sitting president, and now wants to talk about the issues when the dumbass was so lovesick with the. First of all, they don't know you, and none of this even makes sense. And then the words.
What's the implication that I was ignoring the FBI? Wait, what's the?
Yeah, I don't know, that you were so lovesick with the complete incompetent Joe Biden and voted for a total complete imbecile Kamala Harris. And then language I can't use. And then twice. Wow, they doubled down on the F word on that one. 815-545. Give us a call. You're more than welcome to say that to our faces right now.
Yeah, right. Honestly, there's one person that followed me on Twitter after doing your show that just follows me around and antagonizes me on every post I make, and I am 90% sure that's the individual.
Jeez.
Which, you're not going to please everybody. But, I mean, Patty, you've only known me for a couple months here, but I'd argue there's very few people as far left as I am that have been as hypercritical of Joe Biden and Harris. I got blamed today for the election loss by a liberal on the show today. Like, if it weren't for you, it's like, yes, this Appleton show brought the whole thing down. But, like, I promise you, I never was going, like, the idea that they think that FBI thing was a show is ridiculous. I just don't think it was ever going to bring anybody over under the age of 50 over on board with the Democrats. As I've said to you before, there's just too much struggling for people to care about that. They're just, I think that was a miscalculation.
Yeah, that's very strange. The whole thing, and I would say this too. When I was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hatred towards people who want to be who they are and express themselves and be comfortable with their lives, it's never about these things. It's not actually about this, because a lot of these diversity programs were actually under Trump's administration. Like the people who were suspended today in the Department of Education were suspended because they attended DEI training while Trump was in office. So it's the weirdest circle of stupidity, quite frankly. It is entirely, and you talk about this, I think, that it is about the money that is involved. Like, Elon Musk, what is happening in the Treasury where basically the letters we would get from places like Target or our bank that our Social Security number has been compromised and might be in the hands of somebody, we should put a credit lock. Like, is this LifeLock trying to make money that we all have to pay money every month so that our data isn't being used by Elon Musk?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to 5D chess my way into what the ultimate motive is there. I mean, it's pretty brazen. The idea that no one on the Republican right is calling it out for what it is kind of remarkable. I'm at this point, I don't know what we're in power. Like, I feel like we've already crossed the threshold on this, right? Like, he's already accessed it. Like, I feel like all of this conversation is in the past tense at this point. It's frustrating to get here, and I can't believe how many people. I'll tell you what words I never want to hear again are George Soros or Bill Gates from a single Republican for the rest of my life, because clearly billionaire involvement is cool. It just has to be your billionaire.
Yeah, it has to be a white supremacist.
It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which I called him that in front of a couple PhDs, and I got a sideways look. It's a strange world out there right now, Patty. It's a strange world. I will say, with this orange dirtbag rolling back all this DEI, though, to me, and tell me if you disagree with this, the companies that are still doing it, it actually means something compared to when it seemed like it was an empty gesture from every single company. It's like, oh, it's June. We put the rainbows in our stuff now. Like, now any company in 2025 and going forward that engages in pro-LGBTQ behaviors, it's coming from a genuine place. So, like, there's part of me, it's like, well, now we know who's cool and who isn't.
Exactly. Oh, man. Well, what do you got coming up tomorrow? I know you prep the show in the mornings, but folks can catch all of out of the box, right? Outside the box.
Outside the box, yeah.
On WHBY, and you can download the app WHBY because they're super cool. They're fine, whatever. It's Ben Cominos. Follow him on all. Do you want to take a call with me? I don't think it's a hostile call. Let's take a call from Victor in Salem, Oregon. Hey, Victor, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hey, I love your show. You guys are really trying to get to the bottom of everything. And it's odd that Donald Trump won't even tell us what the hell is going on with Elon Musk and why he was able to grab all our information, our bank accounts, our Social Security numbers, all our financial records from the Treasury Department. And we know that Donald Trump installed a billionaire to head the Treasury, and he's the one that approved Elon Musk's takeover of all our data. And we really don't know why, except, you know what? It can't be good.
No.
No, it cannot.
And furthermore, this stuff about Gaza is just like a red herring, because the press won't talk about anything else, and Donald Trump won't either. He won't discuss why he's firing FBI agents or closing all our different departments that help people. So this is just like a cover-up publicity stunt about Gaza. He's not going to do anything about Gaza. He just doesn't want to talk about anything else. And mainstream news won't question him. On top of that, about everything that's going on. And furthermore, all the people that he's trying to fire all live in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has a population of 600,000 people, and if half of them lose their job, I don't think even an Iron Dome over the White House is going to help them. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, Victor, is that I think the humanity in this conversation oftentimes gets lost. Like, with so many people struggling to get by, you hear these abstract talks about how tariffs are going to impact us, or how a whole bunch of government employees that don't do anything important anyway are going to lose their jobs. And half the country's cheering at that. And you're exactly right. There's going to be thousands, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of very frustrated, scared people that only have experience in a few fields now trying to enter the private workforce in a time when money's hard to come by. So, I think that's a really valid point. There's going to be a ton of protests on the other side of that, that's for sure. Absolutely. He's going to, shutting down the government is really a bad idea. It's for the economy, for one thing. He shut down Medicaid for 8 hours one night. You couldn't even get on. I don't know. There's 65 million people on Medicaid alone.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what kind of chaos and crisis we'd be in if they go through with all these plans, apparently. We don't know what's going on with, well, we do. Obviously, he wants to be ruler or king of the United States of America. And he wants everyone to bow down to him, I guess.
And they want us at their mercy. They want us at their mercy. They want us at their mercy. They want us broken. This is all a money grab by the billionaires and the we're calling it the uglygarchy, Ben.
Okay, nice.
That's good. I've heard a lot of other names. Most of them you can't say on the air. But
fair.
Yeah, that works.
But let's face it. There's something nefarious going on. I mean, it seems like ever since the election, which I believe was stolen, and it was unconstitutional the way they took people off the voting roll. There was 6 million people that weren't allowed or didn't vote because their votes were canceled in some way or another, suppressed, and all of that is unconstitutional. And isn't it odd that they took the Senate and the House of Representatives and the presidency all at the same time when Donald Trump is a convicted felon and a rapist, and the Republicans did nothing during the previous term except do investigation on poor Hunter Biden, who filled out a damn gun application incorrectly. And, all they did was attack President Biden. Our economy was going good. Everything was really working on all 8 cylinders. It takes time to implement a lot of the infrastructure bill and the rescue plan and the inflation reduction bill. But Donald Trump and I still don't understand why they want to destroy the economy and the country. There really is in the end, there's no profit in it. They're going to devalue the dollar. They want to go to Bitcoin. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Yep.
And in the end, everybody loses. If the dollar is so weak, all the billionaires, their money's going to be worthless.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they have no insight on the future and what they're doing. It's just revenge, retribution, or whatever the hell they want to do, and trying to make this great country into a dictatorship. Have you ever been to Russia or North Korea?
No interest.
Or even Hungary or China? All those countries, you wouldn't want to live there, let me tell you.
I know, but that's their end game. Is to make us all at their mercy. Yep. Thanks so much, Victor.
Okay. Hey, thanks. Thanks for letting me talk. And you know what? We screwed up by not buying all those eggs when they were 10 cents a piece. Now they're $1 a piece almost. Talk about the goose that laid the golden egg. Forget about the goose. What about the chicken?
Yeah, no kidding. Oh,
yeah.
Well, ciao for now, you guys. You guys keep up the good work, and I got my fingers crossed and everything else.
There you go. Whatever it takes, by Victor. Thanks so much for joining us. I thought I'd take the temperature from our audience. Ben, always great to catch up with you. Let's talk in a couple weeks. Sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good, Patty. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you then.
Of course, it's Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box, and also fill-in host for Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez. We'll talk to you later, Ben. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Let's take a break here. We'll continue our conversation when we come back. I'll get some calls that are on the line as well on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal, and KTNF AM 950, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. Tomorrow, there are protests planned all over the country. I know I mentioned earlier in the show that there were the electeds, Democrats from the Senate and from the House were protesting outside the Treasury because they want to know what Elon Musk is up to, and I think we all should want to know. There is no shortage of topics to talk about. I know that we had some callers that were on hold. If you want to call back, we're always happy to hear from you. 773-763-9278. Coming up in just a few moments after the next break, we are going to check in with a candidate who is running for mayor of Berwyn. And I, as a kid who grew up on son of Svengoolie and now Svengoolie, I try really hard not to go, Berwyn? It's one of my favorite memories. I had a crush on Rich Cos. I didn't know that was his name when I was a kid. I mean, life is weird when, I wanted to be a stand-up comic. It just never occurred to me that I would be in a situation where I could meet some of the people that I grew up in, or have been like Joan Esposito, right? But Svengoolie, have you ever watched Svengoolie, Lady B? I still don't know how to fix the microphone again, but let me see if I have to roll through. Nope, that's the wrong one. If I do this, hold the take, right? Let's see if I can find the microphone for Lady B. It's going to be producer, right? Or Mike. Let's see if I can find it. But when I was a kid, not S Mike. It's got to be, is it S Mike? 2PC? No. Lady B is texting me because I want to be able to, producer 2? Prod 2? You text me and I'll check. But, I'm old enough. This is one of the things that happens on social media. Well, you have like Gen X and older folks. I can't believe I'm in the older folks group, but I am. And they'll talk about how I'm old enough to remember. And I am. I'm old enough to have bought the 3D glasses for the creature from the Black Lagoon. That was, we were going to watch 3D television in our own homes, and that was in Son of Svengoolie. And it never would have ever crossed my mind that I might be in a position to get to hang out, not just meet Svengoolie, but if you watch the Svengoolie on Channel 26, you know that there's often a guest knock at the door, and there's a hand, and all that stuff. And I got to be the hand, and he showed me. I got to be on the set of Svengoolie. It's somewhere out there, but I got to be on the show, and that was very exciting for me. Elliot Serrano, who is a fill-in host here, then switch to T Prog. Okay, I'm trying to get Lady B on the microphone here. Let's go all the way to T. Okay, T. I got TPGM. No. Okay, try that. Let's see if that works. Does that work? Does your mic? Now you turn your mic on. You didn't have to move that fast, did you? Let me see. Oh, no, I lost it again. I'm trying to get Lady B's microphone up. It's very technical in here, folks. There's a lot of buttons. This is like flying I shouldn't say that. It's very technical. Let's see if that works. Nope, not that one. T-Line. No. It's T-Prog is not on here. It's T-PGM B-Star. I'm telling you, I'm pulling back the curtain on how we do this. There's a triangle. Oh, I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm going to roll through all these so I can talk to Lady B and see her, talk about her memories of Svengoolie. Elliot Serrano and I were out one night years ago, and he was talking about how on WBEZ, before it was NPR, WBEZ was the local station on 91.5, and on Saturdays they would broadcast a radio theater of Star Wars, so like some of the comic book adventures of Star Wars, and so I was like, oh, my God, I remember listening to that. And I said it was on after the kids show that they used to carry on WBEZ that I used to not just listen to, but I used to call in and I would do impressions of Mae West on the children's show on WBEZ, which freaked the hell out of Elliot because he knew who I was. He remembered hearing me. So my impression's not great, and it's been, 40 years, but I would be like, I would just, sorry to do it. Won't you come see me sometime? When I was freaking like 8 or 9 years old, I would do impressions of Mae West. Won't you peel me a grape? When I'm good, I'm very good. But when I'm bad, I'm better. So as a kid, I would call in and do my impression of Mae West. And Elliot knew who I was before we ever met about 10 years ago. How crazy is that? It's one of my favorite stories. I'm still trying to find the microphone for Lady B, and so we can hear her voice. That's one of the requests. They asked me, what's the one thing you want in the studio? And I said, I want to talk to Lady B. But the only T that comes up is T-PGM, and I can't find what you're talking about. Yeah, okay, TPGMA. Okay, I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to get to that. That was the one I had, and it wasn't coming up. Is there anything else I need to press? Hold on. I pressed the on button for the mic. Okay, I got B star. Oh, A. That's not, you know what? That's not on the board anymore. That's not, it's just B star. Yeah, I don't have anything else on that. Let me see. Like that, no, that, no. We're going to figure it out some other time. I don't know. I'm sorry, Lady B. We'll figure it out. Well, I'll talk to you after the show about Swinguli, and I'll post about it. At any rate, so that's my little. I have loved. Well, it also shows you that I have loved talk radio my entire life since I was a kid. 815 says they're going to go to bed. They only listen when they want to laugh. They don't want to call in. They only want to use really nasty language. And so we'll make sure that they don't have to worry about hearing from them. So let's do this. Blah blah blah. We don't have to worry about that anymore. I'm done. You don't have to worry about us, and we don't have to worry about you. So give me an effing Patty. Let's see. What if effing? Yeah, a lot of swear words on here. They don't know how to write without. Well, maybe we should just call them. I'm not allowed to do that, am I? No, we were given specific instructions not to let Patty do outgoing calls. Because the thing is that people want to, say these nasty things and, gross and really stupid. I mean, this guy is super stupid from the 815-545. So, yeah. It's just so bizarre. The text screen is really for joining the conversation. Because you imagine, if I just, let's say you were at work and I just randomly started texting you in the middle of your job to just tell you how stupid you were and send you nasty cuss-filled texts. What a weird world that would be, right? This is for people who so let's go to some of the texts. From the 541, as predicted, the United States will be divided into two separate countries. Donald Trump and the Republicans have taken away all the safety nets and safeguards that were put in place to benefit the American people. The result, of course, will be that the blue states or those run by Democrats will form an undeclared, for now, sovereign nation. I don't know about that. That's a lot. Let's see. Did I lose some of the text today? At any rate, also want to say hi to our friend I want to say hi to our friend Teamster Brett, who has varying shifts. So we're very happy to have you back. And let's see what we have. Is it possible to have PTSD after 2 weeks? Yes, we knew it would be bad, but this is nuts. Wondering for months is not like living it. Exactly. I don't consider myself as one who has anxiety, but now as a senior who could at any time have her life ripped out from under her is making me lose it. Muck It Up Musk says he has seen proof of U.S. using COVID as a bioweapon. So crazy. I know you're, and you're doing all the right things in regards to, being frustrated, supporting the candidates that you believe in. So, Patty, please tell the 815 to go the F to hell. Paul from Seattle. Thank you, Paul. There you go. That's from Paul and from me. Let's take a break here, and we will talk to Alicia, who is alderman. I believe she's currently alderwoman in Berwyn. So let's get her on the line. Also want to apologize. We are still having, I believe, some tech issues with running the show on Facebook as well. So we're not on YouTube or Facebook. That's all right. It happens. We'll get there. We're working on it. I know Jim was in here, and it's looking good, and we'll be back online. We're going to talk to Alderwoman Alicia Maria Ruiz, who is running for Berwyn's mayor. More after this on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
Stephanie Miller.
I've gotten more mail than I've ever gotten in my entire life because a lot of people have a lot to share and they can't always make it on the phone lines or they're nervous. And trust me, whatever you're going through, me too. All of us. Wherever you are in your timeline. Drunk, sad, scared, angry. Right there with you. Thank you for people saying they're not listening to anybody but me. I think that's a good plan. Because I'm just like, blah, blah, blah.
Stephanie Miller, weekday mornings, 8 to 11 on WCPT 820. Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
So much for joining us as we drive it home. And of course, we talk a lot about how local elections have so much relevance to your everyday life. And right now, joining us on the line is Alderwoman Alicia Maria Ruiz. Alicia, Alderwoman, thank you so much for joining us. You're running for mayor. Congratulations. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I am excited to be on the show. I feel like a real celeb right now, so I'm feeling great.
Excellent. I got family listening. And I know that you've been doing a lot of hard work in Berwyn. What made you decide to... Well, first of all, let's talk about your background. You grew up in Little Village, right? Right here in Chicago?
I did. Born and raised in Little Village. Migrated as a single mom in 1999 to Berwyn. First-gen Mexican-American for my family, the eldest of 5 children, so you know how that is. Yep. You grow up really quick. Mm-hmm. You get a lot of responsibility that you're not ready for, but you dive in and you make it happen.
I love it. And what at what point in your life did you become aware of the impact of local government, and what inspired your decision to run for alderwoman?
Well, can you repeat that one more time? I kind of lost my thought there. I was going to dive in real quick, and then I got a brain freeze.
Let's go this way first. Like, you know, what did you set out in life to do? And you know, did you intend to get involved in politics?
Absolutely not. As a single mom, you're not thinking about being an elected official, serving your community, working outside of your home, because there's just so much work inside your home that needs to be done. So being an elected official or even getting into governing was never a thought in my mind. Although in my early 20s, you know, I kind of dabbled with it. I really did admire Hillary Clinton when she first, you know, made her debut as an elected official and started really branding herself. I remember being very enamored with her. And then all that kind of fell to the waistline. And then lo and behold, you know, being very involved in Berwyn, I was approached and asked if I would run to be the 6th Ward alderman. And my immediate answer was no.
Oh.
I have to respectfully decline because, you know, it's a public figure. You're on all the time. There's no privacy. You have to be available to your community. There's no closed hours, so to speak.
No doubt about that.
So it took a lot of time, but then I just, you know, I realized the impact that I could make being an elected official in Berwyn, and the involvement or the level of involvement I was already committed to. I felt that coupled with being an elected official would allow me to be able to break more barriers in the community.
And so you were elected in 2017 as the first Latina, correct, in City Hall of Berwyn?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
I was astonished. That I was the first Latina in 2017 to be elected in Berwyn, when for decades already, Latinos had the highest population in the city of Berwyn.
Yeah, what is that? Well, and there was also, that was Cicero. I was thinking about Betty Lauren Maltese, but that was Cicero, which also has a huge Latino population, and yet would continue to elect people that were not necessarily from, you know, the predominant community members. So what has the last 8 years been like for you in office, or 7.5 years?
It's been amazing, Teddy. If someone would tell me would I do it all over again, the answer would be yes. This year marks 8 years being the 6th Ward alderman. In my tenure, I had served as the aldermanic chair of the committee that oversees public works, which covers all things infrastructure, trees, street signage, lighting, alleys, waste and water. I mean, it's all of it, right? What makes our city run. And I've truly enjoyed serving the community in my roles. It's provided me the opportunity to connect with so many families, build community partnerships, and learn deeply about governing and how a city operates. So that, coupled with my recent master's degree in urban planning, is an excellent opportunity to forge forward and be the next mayor of this city. And
so this is a remarkable, this is not taken lightly to become the mayor of a community like Berwyn. Tell us a little bit about that, the decision, the conversations that you had with your family, and what you're hearing from constituents. Well, you're right. It's not an easy undertaking. It's not a quick decision to make. It took me over a year to consider it and to really finally decide that, yes, I would run. I knew it was a huge undertaking. I know what it would require to take our city to the next level, and I know the time and dedication it needs and deserves from a mayor who's overseeing the city. And so conversations with my family, they were astonished, like, wow, you really want to do that? And I'm like, yeah, I really want to do this. It's honestly the next
step into really moving Berwyn in the direction that it deserves. Being in office has really taught me a lot of things that we're missing the mark on, where we're underproducing, where we're underserving, how we're running inefficiently. And so those are the changes that I want to work on that I know Berwyn has the strength and opportunity to make them happen.
That's incredible. I know that when you take on this kind of role, you have a lot of considerations to make your family and also work. You own your own real estate company, which is incredible. When did you start working in real estate, and how that feeds into the mission that you have to make sure people have access to home ownership?
So I actually got my license in 2005. It was going to be a part-time job for me while I was working full-time at Rush. And fast forward a couple years, I realized that I wanted to go back to school. I had not graduated. I didn't do the traditional trajectory of, graduating from high school, going to college, and so on and so forth. I married young, became a mom, and then was a single mom. And so that was my early years, and I decided I really wanted my education. And when I went back for my urban planning degree in undergrad, I decided I needed a more flexible job to be able to, handle and juggle my multiple roles. And so that's how I got into real estate. And it was supposed to be a part-time job, a temporary position until I got my degree and moved on into more community building, economic development type of positions. And I stood there way too long. And what opened my eyes that I really was shining and wanted to do more, really roll up my sleeves and dig deep into community planning and development, was that getting in my alderman position. I realized that when I started seeing policies, how they're made and governing and running a city and operations and public works, I thought, wow, I really want to go back for my master's, and I really want to learn more about how I can make some very impactful good changes in a community. So the real estate job allows me the flexibility to serve my community well, and also keep a roof over my head.
And that's the thing is that, we talk about, housing prices and things like that. And so much goes into having the ability to afford a home, whether it's jobs, how much, debt you're in, whether it's healthcare and all those elements. So tell us a little about the community of Berwyn and what, the sort of the challenges and the upside to living in Berwyn, what that community affords folks. So people can learn a little bit about Berwyn.
Great. And when you talk about housing affordability, before I became an alderman and when I was solely doing real estate, in 2008, when the market crashed, it was a golden opportunity for many families to move into Berwyn because it was so extremely affordable. And I saw homes that were ravished and destroyed during their abandoned years, and there were many families that were taking those opportunities as a time to own a home, and I was grateful to help them find those, transition into home ownership. But quickly after that, when the market bounced back, the pricing started elevating so quickly that so many families were getting priced out.
Yes.
If it wasn't just for the price, then it was the taxes on top of the pricing. And so that really complicated things for families who wanted to migrate from, say, the city of Chicago, any part of it, into a suburban, more safe area for their families. That gap became wider and wider. Yeah. And as governing here in Berwyn, it shows me that policy impacts that tremendously. And how can we change that? And so Berwyn is unique because it's one of the most densest cities in the state of Illinois. Oh. It's a 4-mile radius, and we have about, at least counted in the last census, we have close to 56,000 residents.
Wow.
That doesn't count our undocumented or our, that are, fearful of complying or even filling out those forms. So I'm sure our population is greater, but in a 4-mile radius, we have 56,000 individuals. That is very dense. And so Berwyn's housing, it continues to just skyrocket. We've had developers come in here, buy, dilapidated homes, have rehabilitated them, have put them on the market for hundreds of thousands. I mean, right now I see homes for sale for $700,000. I never thought I would see the day, Patty. It's just insane.
It really is.
And we really have to figure, how can we change? How can we pivot that change? Real estate is always going to be a golden egg for so many people, investors and contractors, et cetera. But overall, it's not just in Berwyn. It's a national crisis, home ownership, and even just keeping a roof over our head. So it's not just, isolated and insular to Berwyn. It's a national problem that we have to solve.
Before we let you go, give us like a 30-second your platform that you want people to know about in your candidacy in running for mayor of Berwyn.
So it's a 5-point plan: financial reform, infrastructure revitalization, enhanced community engagement and communication with first responders, a 2- and 5-year economic development plan, green space and beautification collaborative plan.
Outstanding. Well done. We would love to have you on again and talk more about your campaign. Now, when's the election for mayor of Berwyn? Is this a primary first?
So we have a primary on February 25th. Election early voting starts Monday, February 10th. Early voting goes from February 10th to February 24th, and election day is on February 25th.
Thank you for that information. And folks who live in Berwyn, or if you know someone that lives in Berwyn, make sure that they learn about our guest, Ruiz for Mayor. And what's the best website? RuizForMayor.com?
Ruiz for Mayor at MailChimp.com.
Ruiz for Mayor at MailChimp.com. And we'd love to check in with you and see how the campaign is going. And we wish you the very best. Go get them.
Thanks, Patty. Have a great night.
Absolutely. You too. We'll talk to you again soon, Alderwoman. Let's take... we're not taking a break anymore. We're leaving. We're all done. The show's over. I'm late. Randy Rhodes is up next. Love you, Lady B. Don't forget to listen to Matt McNeil, too. Bye.